Food bloggers, hi, how are you today? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Eat Blog Talk podcast. This is the place for food bloggers to get information and inspiration to accelerate your blog's growth and ultimately help you to achieve your freedom, whether that's financial, personal, or professional. I'm Megan Porta, and I've been a food blogger for over 12 years. I understand how isolating food blogging can be at times. I'm on a mission to motivate, inspire, and most importantly, let each and every food blogger, including you, know that you are heard and supported. The topic we talk about in this episode is a little bit vulnerable. It's a little bit touchy. It's a little bit on the edge of maybe hitting a few nerves, but I think it's a really important one that we don't talk about enough. Ally Kepley from The Rebel Spatula joins me in this episode, and the overarching message is how to maintain a healthy relationship with Instagram and your phone, your mobile device. But it actually ended up turning into a conversation about the fact that we're all kind of addicted to our phones and to technology and how scary this is, not just for us, but for our kids. Ally and I have a lot of the same worries about this, and that definitely comes out in this episode. This is great food for thought, though. If you feel like you are looking at Instagram or your phone too much, or your kids are, definitely give it a listen, and I hope that it helps someone out there who needs to hear this message. Ally also provides some great tips about how to get off your phone a little bit and start enjoying life and have gratitude for the things around you, implement discipline into your life and time management and schedule management and all those good things that will naturally help you get off your device. This is episode number 425, and it is sponsored by RankIQ. Do you want to know how to create compelling video content and have the skills and best practices for how to make the most of it? Then the Tastemaker Food Videography Workshop is for you, and it is here to show you how. Enjoy a weekend hanging out with like-minded food creators, trying out local restaurants, all while increasing your skill set. The future of the internet is video, especially short format, which is definitely having a moment right now. This workshop is for food creators looking to level up their video content creation. It takes place July 20th through 23rd, 2023 in Portland, Oregon. It is put on by Tastemaker Conference. Liz Merrick will be speaking. She is an award-winning cake decorator, author, founder, and CEO of Sugar Geek Show. She is well known for teaching the science behind baking, cake decorating, and creating gravity-defying 3D cakes. With over 2.5 million followers on TikTok, Liz is the video queen. Join Liz and other like-minded peers at this amazing workshop. For more information and to grab your spot, go to eatblogtalk.com/resources. Scroll down to the Tastemaker logo and find the orange button labeled Food Videography Workshop. Secure your spot today to level up with your video content creation. Ally Kepley is a home baker who grew up baking with both of her grandmothers since she was little. Ally started creating her own recipes at age 11 or 12 and was on a roll through becoming a stay-at-home mom. She decided to create a recipe website a little over a year ago out of a desire to want to bake full-time and have more freedom and time with her son. Her blog is catered toward those who want to make elevated recipes that are approachable to anyone. Hello, Ally. Thanks so much for being on Eat Blog Talk. How are you today?
Hi, Megan. Good. I'm so excited to be here.
Super excited for this chat about establishing a healthy relationship with none other than Instagram.
Yes, the one and only.
Yes, the one and only, exactly. Before we get into it, do you have a fun fact to share with us?
I do. So my fun fact is that most of my life I was a dancer. And when I was little, I did tap, ballet, jazz, and then as an adult, I was on a hip hop dance team. I took belly dancing lessons and salsa dancing. So I like to try just a little bit of everything.
That's so fun. I love that. What's your favorite form?
Probably salsa. It is a lot of fun. It's so upbeat and you're just all over the place. And most of these places are attached to Mexican restaurants as well. So you get to eat Mexican food and have margaritas. Perfect. So I'm kind of combining my favorite worlds into one.
Yes. I love it. There's nothing more fun than watching really good salsa dancers dance. They're so amazing.
They are. And it is so much fun. And it's an awesome workout. So I've always enjoyed it.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Great to have you here. And like we alluded to, we're going to talk about Instagram and just creating a healthy relationship because I don't know about you, but I hear so much in our space how it's really hard to do this right now. And there's so much angst and like disappointment and frustration. And it's like kind of an unhealthy space for a lot of people. So this, I think, is a really relevant topic.
It can be, yeah. And I'm going to go through all of that and even things you can do to set yourself up for success.
Oh, can't wait to hear that. First, do you want to start by just telling us a little bit about your journey, where you started, and where you've come to today?
So I started blogging. Well, let's start with this. The pandemic, we all know what a crazy time that was. And I think a lot of people kind of felt that shift, where things were uncertain. With me especially, I had a son who started doing Zoom school and had to be home. So I quickly had to scramble and find a remote job. And I had to abandon school. I was going to school to be a psychologist. And so I kind of had to put that on the back burner and make sure we could do Zach's school and have that set up and make sure I could be home with him. So, I just kind of felt like I was being banged around. My whole life just got flipped upside down. And I was thinking about it because, that's the kind of the time when TikTok erupted, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's online and doing stuff and, making money from it. And I was thinking, I want more control out of my life than this, because everything did feel uncertain. And, in the past, people have said, you should open up a bakery, you're such a good baker, you should work in a bakery or have a restaurant or something, but I didn't really want to do that. So the idea popped up, I should start a blog. I kind of want to teach people that baking really isn't as intimidating as it seems. I grew up doing it, so I'm used to it. But I met a lot of people, especially up here in the north, because I grew up in the south where baking is still a big deal. We make a lot of pies down there. A lot of people I've talked to had never baked before or felt intimidated by it. And I was like, gosh, well, I want to make something approachable for people and show them that, you can make things look pretty and it's not hard to learn. I'll walk you through it. And so I decided to create a blog in, I would say 2021 toward the end of the year. 2022, when you start it, you get really excited and you're like, oh, this is great. And then you start getting into the nitty gritty and you're like, ooh, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. So, and it was good work. I spent almost the entire year learning last year. And, you have to learn photography because that's the very first thing I think people realize, that their stuff has to look pretty or else no one's going to click on it. So I took a photography course, photography school. A lot of bloggers have taken that one. Learn how to make videos, because Reels were becoming popular and I had to kind of switch things up there. And I developed my own website. I mean, how many people are web developers?
Right.
I'm not a tech savvy person, I'll tell you that. So I built my whole website from scratch and, learned how to do all that. And it really was a lot of work, but I enjoyed it. And so I took the entire year last year just learning. And I figured, okay, well, I haven't invested a lot of money. So if I'm still enjoying this, I'm going to stick with it. And I enjoyed all of it, Megan. I just loved it. I love baking and designing my website and learning all this stuff. And I feel like it almost forces you to grow as a person, and you're putting in all this work and then you see the end of it and you're like, I did this all by myself, with a full-time job and a kid, what a baddie, that's kind of how I felt. So, and now, I got more focused on, creating more content and doing, like the stuff that you need to do to grow traffic from there. But I did start on Instagram before I even started posting content on my blog. And I think that's where some of the problems lied for me.
So what problems do you think that caused for you?
I would say there was more focus on keeping up with it. Because, there's certain things that you do. And if you spend enough time on Instagram, you know exactly what I'm talking about, the algorithm, right? And so you learn all this photography, you put that on there, and then all of a sudden they say, okay, well, actually, we want to be like TikTok. And now you guys need to make a bunch of reels or else we're not going to put your content out. And so everyone's scrambling, oh, now we have to learn how to be videographers too, and put a bunch of reels out and this and that. And they got a lot of backlash for that, because any creator, not just food bloggers, but there's a lot of creators out there who are actual photographers and artists and doing things that video doesn't really make sense for them. And Instagram is the space for creators. It really is, because TikTok is its own different beast, And then they scaled things back and said, okay, well, we're going to push out photos as well. And it's hard to keep up. That app will give you more whiplash than a car collision,
So true. Oh, I know lots of whiplash scenarios going on in our space.
Yes. So this is why I call Instagram the toxic boyfriend. And I've always called it that. He's that one from your past, hopefully your past, that was so bad for you, wasted all your time,
yes.
But you just couldn't stay away from no matter how hard you tried, right?
I have 2 of them. Is that bad?
I think a lot of us can relate there. And if that's your current situation, then girl, you need to get out of there.
Yeah. Yes.
You are worth it. But there were a couple points that I wanted to touch on with Instagram. But before that, I wanted to preface by saying that it is a really wonderful space for the blogging community. That is probably my favorite part about it. I've made so many friends on there, and some of them I talk to all the time. And these are the people, that you celebrate each other's success, your shoulder to cry on, troubleshooting, anything. I mean, they're your support network. And they're the only people you can even talk to about this stuff, because nobody honestly really understands. And I feel like if you don't have your community or your tribe, sometimes you can feel kind of lost and alone. And it's good to have people you can talk to and relate to when it comes to that, and I really like Instagram for that reason.
Yeah. And Instagram has been good for that for a long time, even back, I don't even know when I started my Instagram account, but I really started digging in like probably 2015 or 2016. And even then it was a great place for community and finding your people.
Yeah. And I love it for that. And the only problem, and this is where I started to get into I've already talked about the algorithm, but you have shiny object syndrome. So you get on there and you're like, oh, this person makes a gorgeous reel. I want to learn how to make reels like that. And you start doing research on that. Or, oh, my friends are working with this brand. I want to work with brands. And, but do you really, or do you want to do it because your friends are doing it? But you would get so distracted by all this stuff that it really takes away from the one thing that you started to do, which was grow your blog, and it really is a time suck. It can be, you've got your friends posting stories and posts, and you got your own thing, replying to comments, posting on your other friends' photos. And, at the end of it, you look at it and you think, how much time am I spending on here? Mm-hmm. And how many people are even aware of that? Yeah. Because it's not a secret that these days everyone's glued to their phones. Oof. And you hear all about, the youth and how they're becoming addicted to social media and this and that. But what does social media addiction look like for creators? And are you even aware that you're doing it? Especially if you're on the app so much posting, how often are you on there checking your notifications? You get on there looking through posts, looking through stories, and how much time have you spent before you get back off of there?
This is like a whole other issue, mm-hmm. and it's a trigger for me because I feel very mm-hmm. sad about this topic. And not just, like you said, not just kids, which, by the way, is really sad because this is what they're learning growing up We didn't have
It
this, so we
is.
don't even know what's going to happen to them once they're adults, right?
Yeah, and
But
they're watching
yeah,
us do it.
I know, and they're watching us do it. And then on top of that, we're doing it. So
Mhm.
it makes me really sad. But okay, I'm going to let you continue. So yes, this is an
It's
issue.
this is a hard pill to swallow
Yeah.
kind of topic, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us are guilty of this, and a lot of us have not been aware of it before. I sat down and thought about it, and I had a tough time. It's
Yeah.
like, I need to do something about this, because one day, I got to a point where I realized I hadn't posted anything on my blog in about 3 weeks. I just wasn't feeling motivated, honestly, and I posted a couple of things on Instagram, stuff I felt like baking, just posted on there. And so one day I was like, oh, I need to check my stats because I think they've completely gone down the toilet, and I just got on there and I was wincing, only to find out that my traffic had gone up a lot.
Oh.
And I was very surprised. And so I took a closer look at it and saw that one of my Pinterest pins had taken off. And it was these cake pops, that took no time at all to put together, and it was an easy post that I wrote up. And of course, that of all things is the thing that takes off.
Yeah.
It's not the masterpiece that you spent hours on.
Uh-huh.
So it was like I snapped back to reality, in that moment. I was like, what am I doing? And I'm just focusing on other things except the things that are going to bring traffic to my blog. The one thing that I had set out to do that I had spent so much blood, sweat, and tears on, only to completely neglect it, and
Yeah.
and the thing is, I knew all this stuff, Megan. I've listened to so many of your podcast episodes with bloggers talking about how you should only focus on things that are going to bring you ROI and things that bring you traffic, but what happens when that's easier said than done?
Yeah.
Because it's not sometimes. I was talking to one of my friends the next day and we were talking about it. I told her about my little Pinterest epiphany, and she was like, you know what, you're right. I have the same problem. I'm always on Instagram. I have been completely neglecting my blog, and her and I just had this big pep talk about it and held each other accountable. We're like, we can do this. We got this, and that conversation just really lit a fire under me. And I set up a plan. I sat down one day and just thought about everything. I'm like, okay, I need to have a schedule for one, for my posting, my baking. I finally took that class, Cooking with Keywords with Aleka, and which was super helpful. I mean, I found out that I was doing pretty much everything wrong as far as keyword research. And, I put up boundaries with myself. I said, okay, I'm only going to open the app a couple times a day, just to reply to one of my friends or whatever. It's really not worth my time beyond that, and stick to that, and you have to keep yourself mindful at all times, otherwise you are going to get distracted by other things. If you look at it from a psychological standpoint, you have two things fighting against each other, which is instant gratification and delayed gratification. Which one do you think your brain likes the most?
Ooh, instant.
Instant. Exactly. So Instagram is almost all instant gratification, right? And I'm excluding, growing your followers and waiting to work with brands and things like that. I'm excluding that. I'm talking about the little everyday stuff. Like you post something and you start getting likes and comments on it, and all these little things are the ones that light up your reward systems in your brain. If you've ever seen the documentary The Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Yes, I was just thinking of that. I have.
Yes. And they go in so much depth about it, and it's really interesting to see how it fosters social media addiction. And these people in big tech, they do not let their children on phones.
I remember that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. That says a lot,
Yeah.
So then you have that, and then your blog is what? All delayed, pretty much.
Right.
And there's some people who have gotten lucky and gotten into Mediavine, within a year, but that's definitely more the exception to the rule, And delayed gratification requires a lot of patience and a lot of work. And our brain does not like to do that because it has too many other things to do. So it wants things to be easy and fun and instant. If you compare it to a diet, because I think that's kind of what most people can relate to. Say you want to lose 10 pounds for a wedding, right? And you think, okay, well, I'm going to eat chicken and vegetables, and I'm going to be completely miserable and just do it. And I'm going to go to spin class and I'm going to lose these 10 pounds, right? Well, what's the first thing you do? You look in the mirror the next day and you're like, all right, is it gone?
Yeah.
You don't you don't want to wait. You don't want to stay on this diet and keep working out. You want to see results now. And I'm definitely prey to this. I'm not the most patient person. I'm working on it. We're all a work in progress, right? And the problem with diets, it's like, okay, you're going on a diet. Now, what happens when you're done with it? Are you going to eat like crap afterwards again and gain it all back? Or are you going to put in the work and have a plan to stick with a lifestyle change in order to maintain it? And I think that's the part that's missing for a lot of people, is not having a plan for the delayed gratification.
Ooh, this is good.
Here are some tips. And these are things that I use in my own life that I realized one day I should be putting into my business, because it works everywhere and it works for anyone, whether you're a blogger or a runner or, I don't know, a teacher, anybody really. So I think the first thing you need to keep in mind when working for something long term, and this is something that everyone talks about, and it's because there's something to it, you have to practice gratitude. It's very, very important. And the reason it's so important is because it's going to give you the longevity you need. So if you practice saying thank you for the little things, you're not focusing on the negative, right? So I'd say every blogger's first big goal is what? Like Mediavine?
Mm-hmm.
Think about what a long road that can be and how easy it is to be caught up in, oh, this is going to take forever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my friends are already in Mediavine, and I'm still back here. Okay. Well, think about where you started. You started at 0, right? You started with 0 traffic. You started with 0 posts. And look at where you are now. You have to take every little step in your journey and be thankful for it. And be mindful always of how far you've come. And I mean, even if your traffic grows 50 more sessions next month, that's 50 more sessions than it was before.
Have you read The Gap in the Gain, by the way, Ally?
I have not. No, I've heard of it.
So that, like what you just said, is the synopsis of the book, like looking at where the achievements you've made, even if it is little, are going to make you more successful because of that. Exactly what you're saying. Like you're focusing on gratitude, you're focusing on abundance, you're not focusing on the lack of things. So
yes, absolutely. And it's so important, because when you're focusing on all the good little things that are happening, it's taking away from the focus of the things that you don't have. And here's the thing, it's not something that you practice a couple times or once in a while. It's like being a bodybuilder, right? They practice and practice and they're consistent. And your brain is the same way. Your brain is a muscle too, and you have to practice and you have to put the work in. And I know not everyone wants to do that, because it's hard. It really is hard. We all have busy lives, but it's so important and it's so good for your mental health, and you'll feel better for it, and you're going to get further that way.
Gratitude is such a little thing, but adding it to your life and doing it consistently, I think is like, people see that as a big hurdle. But even if it's just like 5 minutes a day, right? And just maybe establishing like a morning routine where you just do 5 minutes of it to get into the habit of it, don't you think?
Yes, and it becomes natural after a while. That's the thing. After practicing it, it becomes part of how you think.
Yeah.
And it has helped me through so many things, Megan. I mean, my life has not been easy. I'll tell you that right now. But a lot of people have had hard lives. And are you going to let it affect you negatively, or are you going to take that and use it as fuel to get you further? Are you going to take those negative obstacles and take a look and say, well, what good came out of this? What door opened? What lesson did I learn from it? And I've had so many people say, like, gosh, you're just cool as a cucumber, just plowing through this. And I'm like, well, stuff happens, and you just got to keep on moving, because if you don't, you're just going to stay stagnant, and that's not a good feeling, it's really not.
Hello, food bloggers. Let's take a quick break to chat about my favorite keyword research tool, RankIQ. I want to take just a minute to share about a creative way I have been using RankIQ. I go to the keyword library in RankIQ and I type in the topic of the post I'm writing about. An example is for a post about how to cook artichokes, I type in artichoke and or artichokes and apply the filter. I browse through the keywords that populate and I pick 2 to 4 of those that would help to round out my post. An example would be how to reheat artichokes. I then put the selected keywords into my post as H2s and I type my answers to the questions underneath in body copy. An example would be to write out a few short paragraphs about how I would reheat artichokes. This is a really great way to potentially grab other low competition keywords outside the main keyword that I'm looking for. Give this strategy a try. I hope it works out great for you too. It's done really well for me. Head to rankiq.com to check it out for yourself. Now back to the episode.
The other thing too that is important for delayed gratification is you have to set certain goals. And with the goals, you need a plan of action, right? So you start off with one big goal. Say we were talking about Mediavine, right? That's your big fish. And so you say, okay, well, how am I going to get there? You break it down into smaller goals. Okay, well, my first mile, or like a milestone, like my son would say, like in a video game, a checkpoint, right?
Yes.
So you break it down into checkpoints. You can say, okay, well, what do I need to get to 1,000 sessions? Okay, well, I need a consistent posting schedule. I need maybe even a Pinterest strategy or something, that you put work into that's going to build your traffic, right? And you get to each of these goals and then you set your next one. And then you feel like you can celebrate after each one. It gives you a sense of accomplishment when you set smaller goals that are attainable. Because if you only look at the big picture, it looks really, really overwhelming, right? So when you set the smaller ones, you can celebrate after each one. You're like, all right, I got to 1,000 sessions and next I'm going to get to 5,000, and you kind of go from there and you stay consistent and you keep your schedule and your plan and stay mindful of what you're doing so you don't get distracted by Instagram.
The toxic boyfriend.
Yes. Stay away from the boyfriends.
Yes. So once you started implementing some of these things you're talking about, gratitude and just, the managing your schedule and all of that, then do you feel like your relationship with Instagram got more healthy?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because for one, I shifted my focus. And when you have a plan that you stick to, your focus shifts naturally. Because you are like, okay, well, today, this is a writing day. So today I'm writing. I do not keep my phone near me when I'm writing. I keep my tabs closed because even the computer can be distracting, And then, when I have time at night before bed or, whatever, and then I'll get on there. If one of my friends DMs me or something, I'll talk to them for a little bit. And then I say, okay, well, I need to get back to what I'm doing. And then I just keep on trucking,
Wow.
but it does happen naturally. And if you put in the work, then things will just it really does come together a lot better for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of us fall into what you were talking about earlier. It's like it starts out as a rabbit hole that we go down. And then before we know it, we're sucked into this vortex that is like mindless trap that we don't even know we're in until something for you got shaken out of it and like had that epiphany. But a lot of us don't know. I had the same thing happen, not with Instagram, but just kind of my phone in general. I don't know, I think grocery store, like in line somewhere. And I was at a checkout and I was like looking at my phone. And I remember I was looking at like email or something. And I had no idea what I was even looking at. I'm like, what am I doing? Why do I have my phone? Why do I keep checking it? I'm not checking for anything specific.
Yes.
And it was such a moment for me. I was like, holy crap. I've been trained to pick up my phone and open it and like click on an app or something. And I don't even know why I'm going in there. And that for me was my epiphany where I just realized I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't live like that. I couldn't show my boys that that's what their mom, like, what are you checking, Mom? I don't know. I'm just going into my phone.
I have no clue. I haven't had any new emails the last 3 minutes, but I'm still looking at it.
No idea why I'm here. So I made an intentional change as well. And it was really hard. I felt like I was maybe like a drug addict, like trying not to reach for the drugs. I mean, it was like a really strong pull to my phone and my computer too. But I just I committed and I made myself stay on the track. And it took like 3 solid months of training myself to not go to my phone before I felt normal again.
Good for you, girl. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize how addicting it really is. I have the same problem. You sit down. I was at the doctor, and you get in the waiting room. The first thing I do is pull open my phone. Like, I'm just going to sit here by myself and scroll. I had no idea what I was looking at either. It was just to have it open and have something to do. And then you look around. You ever sometimes look around, and everybody's on their phone and they're just sucked in there, and you're like, gosh, is this what I look like?
I know. And like, there are times when I am somewhere and I really do have to get some information or like, oh gosh, I need to find that email or that text and find it. But other than that, I really try not to be on my phone because I don't want to be that person who's just like wandering around staring down at a device in her hand. So I'm often looking around like, oh my gosh, everyone in a waiting room is on the phone. If I go to my boys' school, if I'm like waiting for them or something, every single parent's on their phone. I go to swim lessons with my son. Every parent's on their phone. And not to say that I'm not, like I fall prey to that too. So I'm not like being judgy or anything, but it is like
it's widespread is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's widespread.
It
exactly.
Really is.
So take a moment just to like look around you when you're in those waiting situations and notice how everyone they look like robots and nobody's looking at the world anymore. Nobody's like looking up and talking, well, for the most part, like, interacting with humans the way they used to because they didn't have phones. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's bizarre, but we're trained to do it. It's not like a lot of us even know we're doing it.
No, I don't think so either. I wasn't aware for a long time.
Yeah.
And you do come to a point sometimes where you're like, okay, I need to make a change because like you said, I don't even really know what I'm looking at. I'm just on it to be on it, because I'm used to it. It becomes a habit, and it does take time to break it.
Yep. And even like some people probably do know that they are doing that mindlessly, but they don't know what to do to change it because it's so ingrained in us that we know it's going to require a lot of effort and time and just an investment of energy.
It does. And that's why it's so important to learn some of these techniques because I think, I'm, I guess, fortunate that I took a lot of psychology classes. So I feel like I'm always aware of things, and I know what to look for. I mean, even I get caught up in things sometimes, but I'm able to bring myself back to earth and practice certain things. But a lot of people don't really maybe not know what to do or how to change it or certain things that you can do to help it. Because there are things you can do to, like I said, gratitude, mindfulness of, what you're doing, being in the present and being self-aware. And, we all get so caught up and busy in our everyday lives that we don't actually sit down and think about what we should be working on, or, you know, how am I going to change this or that? And because it feels like work, because it is
Yeah.
work, but
Right.
it's important, and you really do feel so much better for it.
It's so true. I can tell you that 100%. Those 3 months that I just talked about were really hard, but once I got to the end of it, I felt like I was given a new life, honestly. And this was during COVID. So to say that I felt renewed during that time is huge. I was so in shock.
It's a big deal.
I know about
It's
how
a really
much,
big deal.
not even how much better I felt, but I was like earning more money in my business by a lot. And I had more
Yes.
relationships in my business, more opportunities had come my way. And I think that's because I was taking my eyes off of the garbage that I didn't need to have my eyes on. And I was allowing for that good stuff to come in.
Exactly. And that's the thing, you allow yourself more time. Think about how much more time. And time is, especially for me, well, for anybody, but in my life, I have a full-time job and a child and all this stuff. And my time is very, very precious to me, and I don't have a lot of it. So I have to use it really, really wisely. So if I'm wasting a bunch of time on Instagram, that is all time I'm taking away from my business, because it really gives me nothing. I've never reached out to a brand before. I'm lucky to get 1 or 2 clicks on my website a day from it. So this is all stuff that's bringing me nothing.
Yeah.
And, and if you do work with a ton of brands and that's, your thing, or you're an influencer, obviously you're going to spend more time on Instagram because you're growing that, but even so, Megan, I've seen a lot of people get hacked before my very eyes. And I think it's so important to have different streams of income and things to have besides Instagram, because if you're solely focused on that, it can be taken away from you in a second,
Sadly, yes, that happens.
Food Blogger Pro, Bjork had an episode about that. Pinch of Yum got hacked on Instagram, and they have like millions of followers, right? Yeah, they've been around forever. And luckily they were able to get their account back. But from what I understand, it took a lot of work for them, and not everyone gets that fortunate,
Man.
So, that's why, having your own website or something besides that, even like an ebook or something, is good to have, because it's always to have something other than Instagram. I will tell you that.
So something I use the app for personally is just keeping in touch with friends. It's a way that I've created relationships that I've had for years now. So how do you recommend people still do that? Like use it as a kind of a networking tool, but maintaining their sanity?
So actually one thing, and I told you I had a conversation with my friend about this, and one thing she mentioned that resonated with me was that she was worried about losing, contact with her friends more and missing out on their posts and things like that. Because, her and I both we like to see our friends' stuff and comment on it. And, and I was like, I think that's part of the problem with me, is that I like the social aspect of it. I talk to everybody on there. I'm friendly and I love making new friends. And I think that was the hardest part for me, as far as, setting that boundary. So what you have to do is just realize they're still going to be there, and if it takes you a little while to message them back or comment or something, then it might just have to wait, because before, I would have, a message come in and I would get to it right away and message them back. And then I would get into a full blown conversation, and I'm like, oh man, I should have, waited a little bit for this. Gotta make dinner.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yep.
And it's just realizing that, it can wait. It really can. People understand. I've had friends that get back to me way later, and there's a lot of people that I think that do have boundaries with it, and people that do not. And I was definitely one that didn't. But, you can scroll later. scroll before bed. That's my Instagram time, especially when I'm laying down. I don't really watch a lot of TV anymore. Before bed, I'll scroll a little bit, talk to my friends, and set out certain times a day that you have time to talk to someone, or go through your feed or whatever you want to do.
Something you said sparked this. I have one little tip that I do. So like you were saying that you'll see something come in and like, okay, I need to put this off. Otherwise I'm just going to go down the rabbit hole. So what I do is I'll kind of let my DMs accumulate a little bit. So if I see one come through, I'm like, not enough. I'll wait until I see between 3 and 5, and then I can kick them out all at once. That's one little thing I do.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip. That's something that I started doing, because otherwise, if you are replying to messages as they come, it's going to...
Yeah, exactly.
That's not good for your time at all.
Also, doing the audio reply, sometimes that's just easier. Like if I'm walking somewhere and I don't necessarily want to be looking right down at my phone, I'll just like hit the audio record and just record a reply real quick. And that's another easy way to just like get in and out.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. I've actually never done that before.
People love that too.
I've never done like a talk to text or anything.
Oh, really? I get so many responses when I do that. People are like, "Oh my gosh, this is above and beyond." Like they for some reason think that pressing that button is so much harder. I don't know, maybe it's just like more personal, so they appreciate it more, but yeah, it's a great little tool. I love that.
I'm going to try that, Megan.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that too.
Yes. Well, before we start saying goodbye, do you have any other little tips or bits of encouragement about how to establish a healthier relationship, not just with Instagram, but we really talked about kind of like phones overall, really, and what you're doing on your telephone?
Yeah, because it all ties in together. But I would say my tip is just go outside. Go outside and enjoy life, and get off Instagram a little bit, get off TikTok, and enjoy the stuff around you. Because it's pretty outside. It's getting warm out.
I know. Finally,
we all need
right?
to go outside.
Yes, I know. It's hard in the winter. I get into ruts where I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't even seen the sky all day, and I can feel it in my body and my mind when that happens. And
you live in the north too, don't you?
Yes, Minnesota. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's gray. There's no sun.
It was a rough winter
all
this
winter.
year. Yeah. Well, this has been so great. I bet you didn't know that you would hit a nerve with me, did you? Or maybe you did.
I didn't. But I was hoping, this is something that helped me, and I was hoping it could at least help one other person. And I feel like I've achieved something,
Oh, it's so true. I know. It's hard to think that with this topic, because it's such a big one, that you could possibly change the masses. Probably not, unless, who knows, you would have to do a lot. But to change like one person's thinking on this is huge. And I think it's so important. And I always wonder, I don't know about you, Ally, but I'm always like, why aren't more people worried about this? Or maybe they are and they just don't know what to do. But I don't hear many people, this is not a topic of conversation very often.
I know.
I'm like freaking out about it. I'm like, I don't freak out about much, but I'm like, this is a big deal. Like, we're going to be 10 years from now, our kids are going to be like mindless robots, and nobody is thinking about this. It's like, oh, it makes me want to tear up and cry.
I think about that too. My son is 10.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. And that's the age where you have to start thinking about it, right? Because I know my youngest son, Sam, he was in 2nd grade and telling me that kids in his class had phones. And I was like, what? No, they don't. Like, I didn't believe it. I was like, that's crazy, right? Like 2nd graders? But apparently that was a thing. And
2nd graders? Oh my
goodness. 2nd graders, yes. And now he's in 7th grade. And my other son is in 10th grade.
Oh gosh.
And we still have not gotten them phones. And they're literally the only kids in their schools who don't have phones. And I know that's probably not a good service in the social realm, but I just feel like it doesn't make sense to me. My husband and I are like, if it kind of made sense, we would do it. but I feel like it's so harmful, or the potential of it being is so harmful is there. And so we're still holding out. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but
I commend you for that, Megan. I really do, because it is one more thing to monitor, because Zach has a phone and I was against it, but his dad and his grandparents live in Florida. And so he likes to FaceTime with them. And it's a way for him to talk to his family a lot, because I mean, I can't, get rid of my phone all the time, So he's got his own, and you do really have to monitor it and monitor what they're looking at and how much time they spend on it. He has time limits and certain things he has to do before he can even get on it. And he likes his phone, I'll tell you that, so.
Yeah. And see, there are things you can do to help with that. So just being a parent, monitoring and letting them know that they don't have full access, like those are things that we could definitely implement. But I just, there's enough stuff that they deal with. I just, personally don't want to add it.
I don't blame you, because I wouldn't either if I had the choice.
Well, I don't want to come across as being judgmental either. I am not judging parents who do it, because it's easy to do it. All the kids have them. So of course you're going to do that. So I don't want people to think that I'm being a jerk or anything, but just for me and my husband,
no, not at all.
It just doesn't feel right yet. I'm not saying we won't, but it just I want it to feel right for us before we do it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We, as parents, we all do what we feel is best for our child and our family.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with anybody else. It's what we feel is good for our situation and our children,
Right. Oh gosh. Okay. Well, this was amazing. I am all fired up now. I want to go start a movement. Maybe we should start one together,
I'll
Ally.
join you.
Okay. Yes, sounds good. Well, thank you for joining us, and we appreciate all the value you shared. And hopefully we can move forward with our Instagram relationships in a more healthy way and just be more mindful of what we're looking at on there, so that we can go on there and actually do things that are benefiting our business, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have either a favorite quote or words of inspiration to leave us with? I know you mentioned some earlier, so if you have anything additionally, now is the time to say it.
Okay, so my quote is from Sebastian Ingus, and he says, "Happiness is a now thing. The happiness you find now is what gives you the energy to create the life you really want. Learn to enjoy the journey."
Oh, that's perfect. And it ties in with what you were talking about, just being present and enjoying where you're at, right? Love it.
Exactly.
Yeah. We'll put together show notes for you, Ally. If anyone wants to go look at those, you can go to eatblogtalk.com/Rebel Spatula. Tell everyone where they can find you, Ally.
Well, you can find me on my website at therebelspatula.com. Of course, I'm on Instagram. It's Rebel Spatula. And don't be afraid to say hi. I love to chit chat with people.
During your downtime.
And during my downtime, yes. It may take a little bit to get back to you. Pinterest. I love hanging out with people on Pinterest too. It's rebel_spatula.
Cool. Everyone go check Ally out. Thank you so much for being here, Ally. And thank you for listening today, Food Bloggers. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Eat Blog Talk. Please share this episode with a friend who would benefit from tuning in. I will see you next time.